Hey guys, it's Jen. Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another video. Thank you for letting me take a little bit of a break. Vlogmas was a long haul and I posted 22 videos, which is kind of a lot even for me. I normally post between 12 and 15 videos per month, but at any rate, I'm going to be sharing with you guys today what I cooked on the day after Christmas. I'm sure like many of you, we have several different Christmas celebrations, so I wanted to share with you our menu. Today I'm going to be making some beef tacos, some peanut butter dessert that's really delicious. I'm also making some seafood enchiladas. My sister made some beans, and overall we just had a really good dinner. And then afterwards I'm going to be cleaning up, and I'm also going to be organizing my recipe binder. So lots in store for you today. I hope that you enjoy this video. Before we get started, I want to thank Upstart for sponsoring today's video. You guys know I have worked with them in the past, and several of you have reached out to me letting me know that you've used their service. I always appreciate when you do that. If you're not familiar with Upstart, they are the fast and easy way to pay off your debt with a personal loan all online. So whether you want to pay off credit cards or consolidate high interest debt or just fund personal expenses, over 500,000 people have used Upstart to get one fixed monthly payment. If you dread looking at your credit card statements, you are not alone. I've definitely been there before. Debt can feel crippling, but Upstart can help you on your path to financial freedom. Upstart knows that you're more than just your credit score, and they are working to expand access to affordable credit. Unlike other lenders, Upstart considers your income and current employment to find you a smarter rate for your loan. And with a 5-minute online rate check, you can see your rate up front for loans between $1,000 to $50,000. And the best part is that you can receive funds as fast as one business day after accepting your loan. To find out how Upstart can lower your monthly payments today, you can go to upstart.com/Jen. That's upstart.com/Jen. Don't forget to use my link in the description box below to let them know that I sent you. Loan amounts will be determined based on your credit, income, and certain other information provided in your loan application. Once again, the link is upstart.com/Jen. Okay, so the first thing that I worked on for this after Christmas dinner was these seafood enchiladas. And I've made these before on my channel. I really only make them once a year at Christmas time. They're not super traditional, shall I say, because they do use cream of chicken soup, but they are good. So I'm starting out with some butter and flour melted together in a saucepan, and I'm going to add about 1 cup of chicken broth to that and just whisk until it is thickened. All of the recipes I use in this video, I will be sure and link in the description box below if you guys want to try them. After that is whisked together, I'm going to add 1 can of cream of chicken soup. Yes, I know it sounds weird, but these enchiladas are really good. The sauce is really creamy and has a lot of flavor, so definitely try it if you like seafood enchiladas. These have crab and shrimp in them, but you could definitely modify them. I also think that this particular recipe would just be good with shredded chicken too. So to the sauce, I'm going to add some sour cream, about 1 cup of that. Like I said, I'll have the recipes down below, and I'll just whisk that in. At this point, I have turned the heat off to make sure that the sour cream doesn't curdle. Next, I'm going to add some salsa. You can use any jarred salsa you have in your pantry or your refrigerator. If you don't have salsa, I think you could also use Rotel. That would work. Also, you could use taco sauce if you don't have any salsa on hand. So the next step is to start making the filling once the sauce is done. So I have a mini food processor here. I can link this one down below. I actually got this for Christmas. I specifically asked for it because I wanted a smaller food processor so that when I had to do small batches of things like this, I wouldn't have to wash my really big Cuisinart food processor, and this works really great. I would highly recommend it. So I have some cottage cheese in there. I know, again, another non-traditional ingredient, but I just went ahead and pureed that until it was smooth. For the shrimp, I actually had purchased some shrimp cocktail at Sam's Club, like a huge platter of it. And I purchased it knowing that we weren't going to be able to eat it all, but also knowing that I could use part of it for this recipe. Any cooked shrimp will work, or if you have, raw shrimp on hand, then you could go ahead and cook that as well and just let it cool before you mix it up. Depending on what size shrimp you use, you will want to chop them up just so that you when you're eating the enchiladas, you don't have huge shrimps in there. So I'm adding this to a bowl along with my pureed cottage cheese. And next I'm going to open some green chilies. It's just a 4-ounce can of diced green chilies. I'm using my new I almost said kitchen opener, my new can opener. I can link that down below. It's a Kitchen Mama can opener. I bought several as Christmas gifts, and then I bought one for myself because I wanted to try it out and I really like how it works. I also used some canned crab meat, so I'm putting that into the mixture. So I'm just going to go ahead and mix this up, and the only other thing I need to add is some cheese, and that will complete the filling. So for this recipe, I'm using Monterey Jack. That's what it calls for, but you could use any type of cheese that you have on hand. I think pepper jack would be really good. You could use Colby Jack or cheddar if you wanted to as well. Okay, so after I get some cheese in there, I am going to save some cheese for the top of the enchiladas. I'm going to chop up some cilantro. The recipe calls for some of that in the filling. And then I also like to save some chopped cilantro for additional garnish on the top. So I'm just gonna mince this. I believe the recipe actually calls for dried cilantro. I honestly never keep that on hand, and it seems like I always have fresh cilantro, so that's what I went ahead and used. So I'm just gonna go ahead and combine this together. And now that we have the filling done and the sauce done, we can go ahead and assemble. So this particular recipe uses flour tortillas. Normally when I make enchiladas, a lot of times I use corn tortillas, but for this particular recipe, I do think that the flour tastes better. So I just have some kind of taco or fajita sized flour tortillas, and I'm just putting some of the filling into each tortilla. You want to make sure that you don't overfill these or you won't be able to roll them up. And I'm putting them into a 9x13 dish, and I've put a little bit of sauce in the bottom of the pan already so that the enchiladas don't stick, and then put the additional sauce over the top and added some cheese. So after you bake this is what they look like. Make sure that you let them cool for like 20 minutes before you serve them. They are super duper delicious, like I said, if you like seafood enchiladas. So the other thing I made for this dinner was some beef tacos. I made these because I knew that not everyone that was going to be eating, especially the kids, like seafood enchiladas. So I just did 3 pounds of ground beef taco meat in my Instant Pot. That's my favorite way to make taco meat. I just brown the ground beef on the saute function and then pour in a cup of water along with some taco seasoning, and you can just cook that on manual high pressure for about 5 minutes and it will be tender. And also a bonus, the Instant Pot helps keep the beef warm while you're waiting to eat. Okay, so since we're going with our Mexican fiesta theme here, I wanted to make some homemade guacamole. So I'm just dicing up some red onion. I like to use onion in my guacamole. You can use red onion or white onion or yellow, whatever you have on hand. And what I like to do is put that in the bowl ahead of time with some lime juice to just kind of let the onion mellow out a little bit. And while that is sitting, I'm going to go ahead and peel my avocados. So these avocados, I actually got them, I think I got them at Aldi or Walmart, I can't remember, and they were quite hard when I first got them. So what I did was I put them in a paper bag with some bananas for about 3 days prior to this meal, and that helps them be perfectly ripe. You can see here, I have honestly terrible luck with avocados. My best tip for you, if you live somewhere like I do and it's cold and you don't really have great avocados around, is to buy them when they're not quite ripe. Put them in a paper bag or a dark place with some type of other fruit that ripens quickly. Like you can use a banana or a pear. I don't know. I always think a banana works best. And the gas from the banana will help the avocados ripen. So That's just a tip I have, something I've been doing for a long time. You can kind of get bananas to ripen the same way quicker if you want to. So after I added the avocado to the onion mixture, I'm going to go ahead and give that a mash. I like to use my potato masher to mash my avocado. I just think it is easier and quicker that way, but you could also use a fork if you wanted to as well. I seasoned this with salt and pepper and added a little bit of extra lime juice. Next, I'm going to add some cilantro. Of course, you cannot have guacamole, at least in my opinion, without cilantro. If you're one of those people that is cilantro averse, I would recommend maybe using a little bit of parsley, or perhaps you could use green onion as well. Okay, so next I'm going to chop up some tomatoes, and the secret with these is that you want to make sure that you don't get too much of the tomato juice into the guacamole, or it will make it watery. If you have time, you can squeeze out the seeds from your tomato. Sometimes I do that, but this one didn't seem to be too super juicy, so I went ahead and just used the whole thing. But I try to chop all of the veggies in my guacamole super small. I also like to add about 2 cloves of garlic. That is something that I recently started doing just within the last few years, and it really does make a difference to the flavor of the guacamole. I would definitely recommend it. I'm just using my garlic press to mince 2 cloves of garlic into that bowl. So the guacamole was done. I went ahead and tasted it, added some salt and pepper, and I set that aside. Next, I'm going to work on some toppings for the tacos. So we have some lettuce here. I'm just cutting that up. This is iceberg lettuce. I always love to have shredded lettuce on my tacos, and actually I like to have shredded lettuce on the top of my enchiladas as well. Maybe that's weird. I don't know. But I'm cutting that up, and then Connor really likes to have tomatoes on his beef tacos. So I personally would just use salsa. Like, I think that is a great, easier substitute for tacos than cutting up tomatoes, but since he liked them, I decided to cut those up and have them on the side, so whoever wanted them could add them to their tacos. So for dessert, I decided to make this peanut butter custard blast. This is a taste of home recipe that I've hoarded in my recipe binder for quite some time, and today was the day to make it. So I have some Oreos here. I'm going to need some crumbs to make the crust for this dessert. I'm using, again, my handy dandy mini food processor for this, which worked great. I'm going to need 2 cups of Oreo crumbs. I think you can buy these sort of packaged in crumb form. I'm never able to find them around where I live, so it's just as easy for me to do it myself. If you wanted to do super easy, you could probably use graham cracker crumbs as well. I know those are pre-done and sold in the dessert aisle. So I put those into a bowl along with a little bit of sugar and melted butter, and I'm just going to mix this up thoroughly until everything is mixed together. You want to make sure that that is mixed well, because you've got that granulated sugar in there. So just to make sure that there are no large clumps of that. After it's mixed together, I'm going to take my 9x13 dish and just spray it with some cooking spray to make sure that it doesn't stick to the bottom. And then I'm going to put my Oreo crust in there and flatten it to the bottom of the pan. We're going to bake this for a little bit, and then that is the only step of baking for this particular dessert. The rest of it is just cooked on the stovetop, and then you can refrigerate it. So I'm just using the bottom of a measuring cup to flatten that out, and then I'll pop this in the oven for just about 10 minutes. So while that's baking, I'm going to make the filling into a saucepan. I'm combining some flour, some sugar, and some cornstarch. And if you've never made a custard before on the stove, don't be afraid. It's fairly easy. Just follow the recipe and you'll be good to go. The main thing is that you don't want to cook it at too high of a heat, and you also want to make sure that you whisk it very often. I really think that peanut butter and chocolate is one of the best dessert combos out there. Besides lemon, that's another one of my favorites. But essentially what we're doing here is we're making a homemade peanut butter pudding. So once the custard starts to cook, you're going to go ahead and whisk up some egg yolks. This is going to help your custard set and give it some richness, but you don't want to add egg yolks directly to your hot custard, because if you do that, you'll end up with scrambled eggs. So what you want to do is just continuously whisk whisk your egg yolks while you add about 3/4 of a cup very gradually of the hot custard mix. This will help temper your egg yolks so that you can go ahead and add it back into the custard and whisk it up, and you'll end up with a homogeneous mixture with no lumps, versus obviously having scrambled eggs in your custard / pudding, because no one wants that. And I would recommend, if you're making this whole recipe, to use a larger pan than I did. I think mine just barely fit, but it does make quite a bit. I think if I was going to make this dessert over again, I would definitely have the recipe, because it was way too much. But if you're making it for a big crowd, go ahead and make the whole thing. So the last step is to melt in some peanut butter. That is basically going to be the main filling for this dessert. So we're going to have like the Oreo crust on the bottom, followed by the peanut butter custard layer, and then we're actually going to top that with whipped cream and chopped Reese's peanut butter cups. Hello, delicious. So once the crust got done baking, I'm just pouring in that hot custard, peanut butter custard, or pudding, I guess you could call it, on the top of the crust, and I'm going to smooth that out. And then you want to refrigerate this for at least 2 hours. I would actually recommend refrigerating it longer than that until it is solid. So when it was time to serve this, you need some whipped cream. Also, if I made this over again, I would probably use Cool Whip. I mean, I have nothing against eating Cool Whip once in a while, and it's easier than whipping cream on your own, but I decided to follow the recipe exactly. So in my measuring cup here, I have some heavy whipping cream. I added a few tablespoons of powdered sugar to that just to sweeten it. You could add some vanilla if you wanted to, and then I'm just whipping that up with my hand mixer. Once that is all whipped up, you can add that to the top of your dessert, and you're basically just going to spread that out until it is even. And the original recipe calls for chopped Reese's peanut butter cups, chopped peanuts, and chocolate sauce on the top. I kind of felt like this dish was like rich enough as it is. So I only added the Reese's peanut butter cups to the top, but you can definitely follow the recipe if you want to. I did have the other ingredients. I just kind of thought, this is good. This is good as is with all these calories and sugar in here. Okay, so I actually got some mini Reese's peanut butter cups at the grocery store. I thought those would be really cute on this, and I chopped them up on a cutting board, and I'm just adding those, sprinkling them on the top of the dessert. After that, it's done. So you can put it back in the fridge if you need to, or you can serve it right away. So I'm just using a spoon to kind of scoop some of this out. This doesn't end up being super pretty on the plate, but it is really good. I highly recommend this if you like chocolate and peanut butter. Be warned, it is really rich, but it is a really delicious dessert. Okay, so here was the spread that we had today. My sister made some homemade salsa, and she brought that. I got out my red and green chips that I got from Sam's Club, and we had our guacamole, homemade guacamole as well. So that was kind of what we had for our little appetizer. And then my sister made some homemade charo beans in the Instant Pot. No, in the crock pot. What am I talking about? Those were really, really good. And then my stepdad brought some Spanish rice, which turned out good as well. And then we had some leftover smoked chicken from Christmas, and so we went ahead and warmed that up in the crock pot for anyone that wanted chicken tacos. So that was super easy. And then here is that beef taco meat that I went ahead and made. We also had obviously some tortillas that I warmed up in a skillet. That's how I like to warm up my flour tortillas. And then also the seafood enchiladas, which turned out really good. And then my sister and I had prepped some cheese enchiladas, which we baked those as well. So this was a delicious dinner, spending time with some family, opening our Christmas presents, eating good Mexican food. Who doesn't love that? So afterwards, it was time to clean up. I needed to clean my crock pot. This crock pot that I have is, I don't know, it may be honestly like dirty beyond repair. I tried to spray some of this Dawn Power Wash foam on it because everyone says, oh, that's, spray it on, let it sit. It's like magic. I don't really think it's like magic. I mean, I've been using it for a while and I do like it. It's not necessarily magic. I mean, as you can see, it didn't really make that much of a difference on this crock pot. I'm probably gonna have to use some cred cutter or maybe something like that. I mean, it did help in terms of cleaning it up. I felt pretty good with how it worked out, but if I want to clean it further, I probably am going to have to use something smaller. And I'm using one of these e-cloth scrubbers, which I really like those. I'll try to find this one and link it on Amazon. After I did that, I went ahead and just sprayed some multi-surface cleaner in there, and I'm just wiping that out. This crock pot is actually kind of old and I like it. It's nice and big and it still works. It's actually the one that I broke the lid on and I had to buy a new one, so I'm not getting rid of it anytime soon. After that, I did loaded the dishwasher rather, and I am just getting that closed up so I can wash the dishes. Okay, so this is actually the next morning, and I'm going to work on organizing my recipe binder. This is something that I've done a dedicated video on before, although it's a little bit old. I can link the video down below if you guys want to check that out. I should probably make an updated one, but basically this is where I store all of my printed recipes. And I print out a lot of recipes. I don't necessarily keep or use them all for a long period of time, but it is a good way for me to keep recipes all together in one place. And it's not fancy, but I do separate it out by course. So I have like breakfast and appetizers, salads, soups, beef dishes, pork, seafood, that kind of thing is how I have it split out. And over the years, I, collect recipes, and every so often I do need to go through this binder just to make sure that I am tossing things that I haven't made, or I'm, keeping things that I want to make. It just needs to be sort of cleaned out, every so often and reorganized. And what I actually wanted to do this time as well was to incorporate some of the recipe cards that I had into the binder as well. I had a bunch of different like loose recipe cards from my grandma and my mom and other family members and friends and things like that. And so what I ended up doing was pasting some of these or taping them onto 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper so that I could fit them in the plastic sleeves. I personally like having my recipes in plastic sleeves like this because, as you know, when you're cooking, things can get messy, things spill and splatter, and it preserves them if they are in sleeves like this. So what I'm doing now is I'm looking through and I'm looking for any recipes that I either intended to make and haven't made, or recipes that I have made before and I don't, we didn't really care for them. I like to keep this as up to date as possible so I don't have wasted space in there. Some of the recipes are from magazines. A lot of them are printed off from the internet. Some of them are emailed from family members. I also have, different cards like I get from meal kits. Like if I have a Green Chef recipe that I really end up liking, sometimes I will punch it out and put it in the binder as well. So it's really kind of an eclectic mix of recipes, but I've already told Kira that she can have this someday when I pass on, and she can keep it safe for me. So here's an example of kind of how I took an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and just pasted some of my recipe cards onto there. Again, this is not fancy. This is not anything that is super, Pinterest worthy or aesthetic, but I really like it, and it comes in handy for me as a resource all of the time when I'm cooking. We have a ton of our favorite recipes in here, so it's a great resource when maybe I just have an ingredient, like say I have chicken in my freezer and I'm like, oh, hey, I want to make something with chicken. I can just look through here. So glad to get that done and wanted to share that with you guys in this particular video. So that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Don't forget to check out Upstart. I will have all the information for that and a link in the description box below. Thank you guys so much for coming along with me today, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.